Should I even call it a chemical? It's basically a bunch of different animal diarrhea just in a bottle. It's really great. You should smell it. It smells like cotton candy. It's awesome.
What up, Gromies? Alright, check it out. Hey, yo, what up? The name is NerdGrows. I got the buttery turf flows, the way I make these herbs grow. This one's for all my tent homies and my earth hoes.
Yo.
Wait,
what are you doing, man?
What?
Start the podcast.
Alright.
What up, y'all? Welcome to episode 2 of the NerdGrows podcast. I saw a lot of you enjoyed episode 1. Thank you for all the love. I really appreciate it. If you haven't listened to episode 1, I kind of just go over a little bit about myself, why I'm starting the podcast, and why I use cannabis. And moving on to episode 2, today I'm going to tell you about my grow. I'm currently in the middle of my first grow. If you believe in the 84 and out the door rule of thumb, I'm literally in the middle of my first grow. Today's day 42 for my ladies. And I kind of just wanted to step by step go over everything about the grow that I'm currently doing. I thought it would be helpful as a first time grower to kind of get these thoughts out while it's happening. One of the issues I ran into as a new grower is when you listen to podcasts or watch YouTube videos or even just talking to other people, you're usually talking to seasoned growers, and they could be throwing around a lot of terminology or techniques that are either too advanced for a new grower or just hard to comprehend as a new grower. And I did find it to be confusing at first. I often make the joke to my friends, I'm top dressing with soy sauce and raccoon nipples, because that's kind of how it sounds at first when you're like, oh yeah, I have worm castings and guano, and there's this rare African elephant where you take its toenails and you put them under the leaves. No, I'm just messing around, but it kind of feels like that, like the initial information overload of learning how to grow cannabis. So for that being said, I think I have a very simple first time grow setup, and so far it's going really well. I'm currently coming out of a battle with a little bit of nitrogen abundance, and that was my fault, obviously. Like, I just don't have like the muscle memory for feeding yet, which is something that, you know, you can read as many feeding schedules and buy as many amendments or chemicals as you want, but the most important part of growing, in my opinion, at least in my little experience so far, is being able to read the plant. You know, the plant is a living being, and even though it can't talk to you like a human, or it can't like express emotion to you like animals can, like, you can still kind of interact with it in a way. Read the leaves and, you know, their color, texture, shape, the rate at which they're growing. That's all information telling you when to feed, when to water. So obviously, as a first time grower, I'm having some issues with that. Specifically, I was feeding too much and not watering often enough. See, this whole time I thought I was overwatering, but then like I sat down and I studied the plants and I looked at them, and then I kind of realized I was underwatering, and then I gave them a decent amount of water and they came right back and they look great now. That's kind of what's going on today on day 42, but I really want to bring it back to the beginning and kind of just go step by step how I set up my first grow, in hopes that if you're a new grower or if you're starting your first grow, you can essentially just copy exactly what I'm doing and get the ball rolling for yourself. And if you're a seasoned grower, sometimes it's fun to go back to the basics. I don't know. You do you. All right, so before I knew about seed genetics and the importance of seed genetics, I just made the cardinal sin of new growers is just typing in cannabis seeds or autoflower seeds into Google and just clicking whatever result tickles your fancy. So I did that, and luckily I learned more about genetics and was able to buy better seeds before my tent came. So I never actually ended up growing like the crappy seeds I bought at the beginning. I do have them growing now as little bonsais to teach myself low stress training, because I did, Like LST seems really cool, and I like the idea of like optimizing a plant by bending the branches and everything, but I wasn't about to do any risky behavior or any behavior that I'm uncomfortable with on my first 2 plants ever. So I'm using those seeds to grow some bonsais and just bending them in all different ways and just having fun with it and trying to learn as much as I can from it. So I ended up, a few days before my tent came, I ended up buying Mephisto, specifically the Mephisto starter pack, which at the time, I don't know if they still offer it this way, but it was double grape, Walter White, creme de la creme, and the freebie tester I got was Hubba Bubba Haze X Livers, and I decided to grow double grape and Walter White first, mostly because when I was reading about how they grow, like on the Meth Head subreddit, or just even if you go to Mephisto's website, they have little like 3-paragraph growing guides for each strain, like things to look out for. And out of the 4 strains I had, these 2 kind of seemed to be like the hardiest. So it'd be like the lowest risk for my first grow. For the actual gear setup, I bought a AC Infinity 2x4 tent starter kit. It runs about $600, and it's essentially everything you need to get a 2-plant grow started. The only thing I really had to add to the tent myself was a small humidifier just to keep the humidity in check. The tent kit itself comes with the tent, the controller, which I don't know how you grow without a controller because you essentially have to be sitting by your tent all the time, right? So the AC Infinity controller will control your light, your oscillating fan, and your exhaust system. And it has a 4th plug where you could buy another accessory. They actually do sell their own humidifier, and you can plug it in there, and it connects to your phone, and it has an app. It also has a widget, which, I'm an Android guy. I love widgets. Like, filling up your phone's home screen with icons is a waste, in my opinion. Like, you want your phone to be like a sci-fi movie. Like, you turn it on, and it's like your HUD for your whole life. Like, that's how I run my phone. So, like, being able to just turn on my phone and see what my grow tent is doing is awesome. Right there next to my calorie counter and my to-do list, all the fun stuff. I feel like the AC Infinity controller is like a must-have for at least modern growing. I don't know, I didn't grow back in the day, but it's definitely a huge, what's it called in video games? Quality of life update. There you go. The tent kit comes with the tent, the controller, the exhaust system with a carbon filter, which you can set the exhaust system up, going in or out. A lot of people, because of the smell during flower, will use it as an exhaust and have it go through the carbon filter so that way your house doesn't smell if you're growing indoors. And then it comes with the IM board light, which is awesome. All right, so one thing about this was another mistake I made. On the board light itself, there's a dial where you can set the light between 1 and 10, and then there's another setting on the knob that is UIS mode, which means to connect it to the controller. Now, I didn't know that was a thing. When I set up my tent and I turned the light on, the knob was set to 3. And then on the app on my phone, I had it set up to do, 18.6 at 10 brightness. I'm doing what do they call it? 10 at the top, where you just put your light as high up as you can and leave it on 10. But this whole time, I didn't realize until one night I happened to be up in the middle of the night and I came downstairs and the light was still on when it was supposed to be off. And then I finally realized it had been going 24/7 on level 3 the whole time, which honestly sounds like a horrible mistake, but my plants stretched a little bit during veg, like a little more than I would have liked them to, but they still look good. But honestly, it was a good problem because during that point in my grow, I was having a really hard time keeping the temperature up. And like, it came to the point where I had a space heater in my tent, and then the space heater, like the plug for the space heater was getting really hot, and I was like worried about causing a fire or electrical problems. I ended up taking it out and I was like, whatever, I'll just grow cold. Like the tent with the light on level 3 was sitting around like 72, 73 degrees. But then once I realized that I had never set the fan to UIS mode, and then the light actually turned on to level 10 for the first time, and then now the temperature of my tent is like 78 to 80 at all times, making it much more manageable. So even though I had messed up the light, fixing the light resolved the temperature problem I was having, which was pretty good. And I haven't had a need for the heater. It doesn't stay too cold. I have central air in my house, so my house stays at a consistent temperature and humidity anyways. So the central air plus the ion board giving off, whatever heat it naturally gives off is like enough to keep the tent at a pretty good place. The tent kit also comes with an oscillating fan. This is important because you want your plants to always be kind of swaying in the breeze a little bit. That helps ward off pests and bacteria, and I don't seem to have any issue with that so far, which is good. You don't want the fans to be hitting your plants super hard, so I usually aim the fan like a little bit over the top of the plant, just so it gets like, a little tickle from it. Nothing super crazy. So yeah, just to recap that real quick, my tent setup is the AC Infinity tent with the controller, the oscillating fan, the exhaust system with the carbon filter, and the ion board, and then I added in my own little humidifier to control the humidity better. Alright, so next we're going to talk about my growing medium. For this, there's a lot of different types of growing mediums because you have soil, cocoa, hydroponics, aeroponics, everything in between. I just decided to go with soil at first, just because, I don't know, that's how you grow plants, is in soil. It just seemed like the most natural and basic method to do this. So I did some research about different types of soils to use and what soils and what type of food and nutrients you want to give your plants. I saw a lot of people recommending the company Fox Farm. That seems to be a pretty popular company with cannabis growers. So I looked up a bunch of different Fox Farm growing strategies. I decided to use 2 different types of soil. I basically filled the pot most of the way up with ocean forest, and then I dug out a hole in the middle, and then I filled a ball in the middle of Happy Frog. From what I understand, Happy Frog has less nutrients in it than ocean forest does, and you don't want to overdo the nutrients with your plants, especially in seedling stage. So from what I understand about this strategy is that when the initial roots grow from the plant, they're in the Happy Frog, so they're getting a little bit of food. And then as the plant gets bigger and the roots go out more, that's when they hit the ocean forest and they get a more, bigger amount of food. I didn't end up feeding until, I think my first feed was almost at week 4. Mid week 3 maybe. And it was just very, very little at first. Now to move on to that, for nutrients, I'm using the Fox Farm Trio kit, which is Grow Big, Big Bloom, and Tiger Bloom. I'm still learning about all the different types of nutrients, as far as how to balance nitrogen and phosphorus and potassium. But from what I can gather just from my experience in using the Fox Farm Trio nutrients is that Big Bloom is kind of the everything food that you just kind of feed it the whole time. And then Grow Big is for the vegetative stage of the plant. And then Tiger Bloom is for the flower stage of the plant. And that's obviously a very, very rudimentary way of putting it. But that's just kind of the vibe I got from, reading Fox Farm's documentation on their website. I don't follow their feeding schedules 1-to-1, but I use it as kind of a guide for ratios and timing, essentially. What ratio of newts am I giving at what point in time in the plant's life cycle? I also use photosynthesis Oh, that's a lot. Photosynthesis plus in every watering. From what I understand, that's a microbial agent that helps the bacteria in your soil. Much like the human body, plants have good bacteria that help them out as well. So from what I understand, this chemical, should I even call it a chemical? It's basically a bunch of different animal diarrhea just in a bottle. It's really great. You should smell it. It smells like cotton candy. It's awesome. But from what I understand, it feeds the good bacteria that help the roots of the plant. I could be wrong about that, but my plants seem to like it, so that's cool. As for other little accessories and everything, the AC Infinity tent kit comes with shears or like pruners and fabric pots, and I think it came with gloves, and it really comes with like the majority of the accessories you need. So when you're starting a grow, if you decide to go with a tent kit like this, you really only need to buy, the soil and the seeds and the food, and you're basically all set. Another thing you're going to want to pick up is a spray bottle, just like a normal one you would use for Windex. I find that's good for seedlings when they're like really, really tiny. And then as the plant gets bigger, I'm actually using a chemical sprayer, like, one you would put like liquid fertilizer in or pest repellent in, you spray around the edge of your house kind of thing. You can grab one of those at Walmart I think I got mine for like $8. It's a good way to slowly and evenly water your plants as opposed to just like dumping a bucket of water onto the soil. Watering is more of a process than I thought it was going to be before I started growing, because with a chemical sprayer like that, it takes like upwards of an hour to drop a gallon. I haven't had to feed a whole gallon yet. Like my plants are taking between a quart and a half gallon each watering. Like I said, it depends on kind of what they're telling me, what they look like. And yeah, that's really about it. Now, not to talk smack about like seasoned growers, because they're an insanely great group of people from what I've met and crazy informative. However, every grower has their own style, and they're going to advocate for you to do certain things that maybe not that they're not needed, because they will, increase the quality of your grow, the yield of your plants. However, just getting started, in my opinion at least, just getting started is such a battle unto itself that I think starting off really basic and then adding on those more advanced techniques as you go along is probably the best way to go about doing it. Also, over the course of your grows, you're going to develop your own grow style. You're going to experiment and try out different things. Yeah, I'm in the middle of my first grow. I'm growing in Fox Farm soil with Fox Farm Trio Newts. I'm basically basic bitch of cannabis growing, and that's fine. I'll take the pumpkin spice latte. It's still good, as opposed to, making some crap water because I didn't know what I was doing. It's a horrible analogy, but it's fall. What up? Learn as you go. Start off basic. Like I said, all I have is a tent kit, soil, seeds, and food. And that's all you need. I'm going to put links to everything down in the show notes. This is just the gear that I'm using at this moment during my first grow. I know I talked a lot about AC Infinity and Fox Farm in this episode. I'm not affiliated with them in any way other than so far I'm a happy customer of their products. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to get into today. If there's more specifics about my grow that you want to know, just hit me up or I can make an episode about it. Next episode, I'm going to go over tips that I have for new growers, and it's really just from my perspective, like if I could go back to day one of my first grow, so like a month and a half ago, what would I tell myself to have improved it? And I think it'd be really helpful, because even though I'm not like a seasoned expert, I've learned a lot, and you can learn from my mistakes. I will shame myself quite a bit. I'll tell you all my screw ups. But yeah, it's a learning experience. I'm having a great time learning how to grow. It's been amazing. I've never grown any plants before ever, so this is like a very new activity for me, but I've been enjoying it. It's been very therapeutic. I like having a plant to kind of look after and nurture. I did a little garden in the backyard this year as well, and I want to expand that next year, especially now that I'm learning a lot more about plant biology. I think I could get some cool stuff going. I really want to grow my own like ghost peppers, or like I'm really into like that, chasing the dragon of capsaicin. So I would love to grow some hot peppers as well. I have a little 2x2 tent. I was thinking maybe turning that into a hot pepper tent. You can grow during the winter. That could be cool. But yeah, until next time, peace, y'all.